Welcome to In the Reads, the podcast of San Jose State University's Read Magazine, California's oldest literary journal. In this episode, Read Magazine staff Opal Franklin interviews Pablo Cruz-Ayala, 2025 winner of Read Magazine's Mary Blair Award for Art in issue 158.
Welcome to the In the Reads podcast. My name is Opal and I am your host. Today, I'm going to be talking to our 2025 art winner for our last year's edition of the Read Magazine. And so I want to introduce you to Pablo Ayala Cruz, who is coming in today from Utah. Pablo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
No, absolutely. Congratulations on winning again. Your art is, breathtaking. Very, very timely for what's going on here in this United States. And so tell us about the piece that you submitted to us and your motivations behind it.
So, I submitted a few pieces, and I'd like to highlight the one that's one of my favorites. It's called Immigration Without Integration.
Yes.
And it's a piece that discusses my own father's story of immigration. It's depicting him under an underpass here in Salt Lake with his body holding the representation of me as a baby. And I incorporate a lot of textile embroidery, a lot of concrete motifs, and a lot of Mexican ideologies that have been passed down through me. I think a lot of my work is sort of almost a self-meditative therapy for myself and my community. I saw that my father was working. I didn't even realize this until a few years ago, where I realized that my father had been working 2 jobs below minimum wage just to give us a future. He sacrificed so much, and I wanted to recognize his labor as something that hadn't really been seen even by his family. And I wanted to emphasize moving forward in my artwork that I'm collecting oral histories and stories from the immigrant community here in Salt Lake City, so they're not forgotten, so that they're recognized, and that their actions of love are seen as actions of love and not as some political statement that goes against communities. Because at the end of the day, these are families and these are communities that build each other up. And that has skyrocketed my work to be more focused on the people that it impacts and the stories that they grow from.
No, that's really beautiful. And so how does your artwork kind of engage with community? I know you talked about it was a portrait of your father, but what motivations from your community kind of inspire the artwork that you put forth? Because it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Growing up here in Utah, I had always felt disconnected from community. I think my mom and dad would tell me, don't answer the door, or don't talk to your neighbors, or don't tell anyone your status. And I think that is systematic of a lot of undocumented families, feeling that they're closed off from communities or from their neighbors or from people that, they live with. And going to college, I realized that that wasn't something that we had to live under. People had bigger hearts than that. I knew that I got to know my teachers and I got to learn more about my communities. I got to volunteer more. And I saw that there was a real space that needed more people in it through community art. I started volunteering at art community centers and started doing fellowships with muralists around the city, just collecting stories. And I just saw how important it is that if something isn't collected or categorized or placed in a system that recognizes its value, then it's not going to be remembered, and it's not going to be valued as everything else that already has so many eyes on it. I saw that these stories were just like my parents and just like my mother, who had gone through lymphoma treatment back in 2012 and then again in 2022. And I saw a stark difference between her treatment 10 years apart, where one of them was just treating her like someone who couldn't speak English, as someone who had difficulty through the system. And then in 2022, she went to an institution that had an art residency program and a cultural program. And it was a shift that actually saw her as someone, as a person. And I saw that power through the medical system. And I felt that, why can't we do that in our communities? Why can't we recognize people's cultures? Why can't we recognize their stories and help them through illness, through poverty, through feeling isolated? Why can't we recognize their stories? And that's just something that's been really important to me and something that I've carried throughout my artwork since.
Yeah, I see that you engage art and biomedical research. And so what are kind of the unique ways that you're able to do that as, as an artist? Because I think that's a really unique intersection. So tell me more about that.
Absolutely. It was inspired by my time with my mother at her cancer treatment. I saw that art it was beyond the barriers of language. I could sit down with a group of 15 individuals who might not even speak the same language, and yet we created artworks together that didn't have to have a language communication aspect to it. I saw that there was an innate power in that wasn't being recognized by the outside community. And so I took the opportunity in my biomedical capstone, where I created a research project that, in collaboration with the community, I created about 15 artworks, all inspired by their oral histories and their oral traditions. And that took about 2 years, where every month we were gathering together, collecting our stories and creating proposals for what we were going to paint. And then we got a local gallery, and I did a few proposals for human testing and created a biosignals monitor that people could put on their fingers, and they would walk around the exhibition gallery space. And we saw that their heart rates and their heart rate variability was impacted by how connected they felt with the artwork. We had a control, and then we had our stimulus, where it was immigrant-focused artwork versus abstract artwork. And we had partnered with an incredible quilter in the community to do our abstract work. And it was just such an empowering program where we had community voices, we had community artists, and we had community spaces all intersect in one place. And it created science. It had a wonderful impact. And we saw that there was actual statistical significance when people saw and were surrounded by artwork that they could identify with versus artwork that wasn't connected to them. And we saw that it helped build their emotional regulation abilities more than abstract artwork. And it's something that I've even taken further with the hospital that treated my mother. And we've gotten more immigrant artwork into their waiting rooms and their hallways to allow people who feel isolated to feel connection with the artwork and with the space to feel calmer.
Yes. And so thinking about feelings of isolation or maybe feeling like walking in fear due to your status that you've spoken so freely about, kind of what are some of your motivations to be so, unapologetic, if you will, in that and putting your name, your face, your artwork out there? What are the things that motivate you in a space that sometimes folks might feel scared and want to retreat?
Yeah. Initially, I had my family that really encouraged me. I had my mother who came here back in 2000 with nothing and just me and my 2 siblings. And it really, once I got into the educational system, I saw that it was possible that even someone like me who was undocumented, who didn't have DACA status, who didn't have protection, could still attain higher education. I saw myself not only as an example for my siblings, but an example for my community. And I started working on community boards, both on art museums, art councils, and even higher education support group systems for undocumented immigrants in the state of Utah who were youth, who felt that they were isolated, who felt that they didn't have representation of themselves in higher education. I'm a part of this group called Davis Dreamers, who offers community events for youth who aren't undocumented, just because we saw how impactful it was to find peers and mentors who had your experience, who had their understanding that things were difficult, but that there was solutions in there together, that we could overcome things together. And I felt what combated my isolation and what has really pushed me to move forward past feeling fear of my status was to know that there are so many people like me, that there are so many others who are in worse situations or who feel that there is no hope. And yet I want to be there for them to say that we're going to get through it together and that we're going to make a new example, regardless of what's been accepted or what's acknowledged. Even in my MFA program, I had a loss of funding that was unexpected because of my status. And it was only through the advocacy of my MFA committee, the graduate committee, and the graduate program here at the university that knew me and knew my story, only because I had the courage to advocate for myself. And it's been incredibly enriching experience that over the past 7 years that there has been actual change because of the hardships that I experienced as an undocumented immigrant. I know now that people applying to scholarships within the university that I'm in now have an understanding that this scholarship will go to them regardless of their status because of the upward that I was able to do with my community, with people that advocated for me.
No, that's really beautiful. And tell me what the word first generation kind of means to you and how you can kind of be a catalyst for change. Maybe thinking about first generation as an artist, a first generation person going not only through undergraduate, but through your master's and the motivations behind those. So paint a little bit of a clear picture for me on how that's all kind of come together, because it seems like the folks in university for you have created a community that have helped you. So tell me about it.
I think first generation is a lot of firsts, but it's also a lot of people in the shadows having done work that isn't recognized. I know that I wouldn't be accepted into the University of Utah without other undocumented people having gone in there first. I know that I wouldn't have immigrated to Utah if my mother didn't have family in Utah. I wouldn't have been the first in my family to do a lot of things if it wasn't for the support of my community. And I think that's what it really means to be the first is you are not an individual, but you are a collective community that is attaining something that had previously and historically not been available to them. I know that because I was the first in my extended family to go to college, now it's something that is expected of all my nieces and nephews is something that they can do for themselves, regardless of who they are, where they come from. I think it's a shift in what it means and what's possible. I know going into my undergraduate, I was just going to be a biomedical engineer student. And I felt that I wasn't complete without my art, without telling my stories and without telling the stories of my parents and my communities. And so I tacked on a double major, did another honors certificate, and really pushed through it, not because it was something that I wanted to do for myself, but it was something to prove to others that it was possible and that nothing would keep me from doing what I love. And again, that's why I found the intersections of arts, immigration, and science, because just because it hadn't been done before doesn't mean we can't do it together.
No, absolutely. And when I think about sometimes the pressures of maybe being first gen in a lot of different ways, it's always like, stay focused on like the big three. So it's like doctor, engineer, or lawyer. And it's like, we're oftentimes encouraged to maybe put our art on the back burner or maybe not even like consider it at all with regards to thinking about success in the bigger picture. And so was your artwork something that your family always supported you on in your community, or was it something that you felt like you kind of had to weave in and be and justify it in a way, if that makes sense? Just because I know how the arts are looked at sometimes with high achievers like yourself. So how did you kind of present that as like, hey, folks will listen to biomedical engineering any day, but it's like with art, there might be a little bit of a balance. But tell me about that.
I think I think I always find myself in conversations where I tell people especially in my undergrad, that I was double majoring in biomedical and then art, and they'd be interested into why that was. And even though for me it was almost like breathing air, to them it's almost like water and oil. It's strange because it's just creativity and the sciences go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, and art is so enriching to understanding that you're really impacting people regardless of what you're doing. And if that's not in the focal point of what you're doing, then I feel that that's just such a disservice. Uh, Initially, I think a lot of people that grow in Hispanic backgrounds feel that art isn't an attainable goal or isn't something worthwhile. I did have pressures growing up that I should go into construction, I should go into hard labor to make money now that my family was in dire need of. But I think I had a lot of advocacy from my teachers and from my community members that the things that I was working on, the passion that I had for art was something that I shouldn't disregard because of the sacrifices my parents did. I shouldn't go into something that wasn't meaningful to me and wasn't impacting more than myself. I know a lot of immigrants kind of go down that path, and that's why it's just so important for me to recognize that I'm collecting these oral histories of these immigrants not because I want to store them away. I want them to be used as inspiration, to know that they don't have to feel that their life is given to one sacrifice. It's a collective. We rise up together, and we should all allow people to pursue their passions, regardless of whether they feel that they have an obligation to do something else. It really was for me that art was a lifeline. I started selling my art at a young age to help support my mother while she was going through her cancer treatments. And even in my undergraduate, I got more scholarships in my art than I did for my biomedical engineering. And even now, I'm using my master's degree to help fund for medical school. I think they go hand in hand, and it's something that can't really be separated from each other. And I think a lot of my work is to show that people can be artists, they can be scientists, they can be anything as long as that they have a community that supports them.
No, 100%. And you talk about the word advocacy too. I know we first talked about the word first generation, but with advocacy, it seemed like you've had to do a lot of that, not only for yourself, but for your community. But tell me a little bit about that and how that's reflected in your artwork.
Especially with funding for my graduate school and my undergraduate, I've had to do a lot of personal advocacy just to say that I belonged here, that I deserve to be here. Throughout high school and elementary, I had never thought I could do honors classes or never thought I could do the things that would set someone apart. And yet I was in my final year of high school taking 20 AP classes, doing international baccalaureates, getting art awards. And I think something switched to recognize that just because of my background, I'm here regardless if someone thinks I belong or not. And so when I got to my higher education and saw that there were some scholarships that were being pulled away because of my status, I recognized that I didn't deserve to have that happen to me. No one deserves to have that happen to them. And so I started to recognize that other people should know what's happening. Other people should know that this is happening at their school or their state or their country. And so I started talking with community leaders, like with the head of the Davis Dreamers. She was an incredible advocate, and we got to emailing, we got to standing in offices, we got to talking with directors. And through that, we built networks that other people could use afterwards. And I think it goes again, being the first or first generation or a first student. You're not just building a path for yourself, you're building a path for others to follow. And I know a lot of people who have, through my mentorship programs around the state, that have used my name as a connection. It's like, oh, well, I know Pablo did this. How can you not help me through this? And it has helped them recognize that they deserve to be here and they deserve that recognition. I think for me, the greatest evidence is that you get these scholarships not because you didn't deserve them or because you didn't work hard enough for them. You got them because they saw your value and they saw their contributions you'd been doing. And for them to pull the funding isn't a reflection of who you are, it's a reflection of the system and the errors within the system that need to be changed.
100%. And I know I keep throwing words out. Another word that I want to understand your definition of is the word legacy and what you want to leave behind, whether it's through the work you're doing, through your art, as a future doctor. Like what does legacy look like to you and what do you want to leave in that?
I think legacy really means creating paths for others. I know talking with people who feel that school is impossible for them or feel that their family won't support them through school. I want to be a showcase that I came from nothing. I couldn't afford high school. I couldn't afford college. I couldn't even afford my master's. And yet it was through the networks that we built together that are going to last even after I'm gone, that will continue to support other students and support community members and support really anyone who needs them. People can't take away the stories that we've recorded or take away the art commissions that we have on the side of walls. I want to emphasize that it's the stories we leave so people remember and they don't go back to that. And I look back to my mom a lot, and she's recently gotten her green card, but she lived almost 30 years undocumented here. And I know that she will never forget those 30 years after she has her status. And that's something that I want our community to recognize. That there will always be marginalized people. There will always be these people that need help because our systems aren't perfect. And to not recognize that imperfection is building a system that forgets. And that's what I want my artwork and my community work and my advocacy to do is to remember and to make sure that something isn't forgotten. I know that when I'm gone, that the systems and the communities and the networks that I've left behind will continue to function for others because of the people that I've impacted and the people they've impacted and the stories that they've shared and the stories that they've collected. It's something that you can't get rid of when it's a part of a community.
100%. Ooh, snap, snap, snap. And thinking about kind of continuing on that legacy, and of course, we were so excited to get your submission and eventual win from Reed. Where else have you put your artwork out at, and kind of what motivates you to put yourself out there this is kind of an artist to artist question, because I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome at times with my own personal mediums of art, but what kind of motivates you to put it out there and gives you that courage? And where do you hope to see your murals and your artwork in the future?
I completely agree. I think I felt like you don't ever get past that imposter syndrome. I think everyone, especially people in our situations, always feel that, oh, am I not saying the right things? Am I not adding enough to the discussion? Or am I not creating work that's powerful enough? And I think it always helps me to take a step back and recognize the people that I've impacted. And I know you've impacted my life already by just knowing that someone else is out there that shares in the pains and sorrows and knows that they're not. I know that I'm not alone. And now I feel it's so rare to meet other people who've gone through these things. And yet to know that someone else is out there makes me feel that I'm not alone, that I'm not fighting something alone, that we rise up together. And I know that I have permanent installations here in Salt Lake City. I'm on the Salt Lake City Arts Council, so I'm going to impact the artwork that will be in the city. And I think even if it's in the sidelines, even if you're in the background, your name and your stories and your impact and your knowledge and understanding can impact your city, your state, your country, regardless of where you come from. I think a lot of people see me as undocumented and don't consider me an American, even though I've lived my whole life here in Utah or lived my whole life here in the States. And only I can be the judge of that value rather than let someone else do that. So I feel getting my name into public spaces, into committees, joining local committees is so important because that work solidifies my name in the history of where I live. I know right now there's one of the biggest museums in Utah called the Springville Museum of Utah. It has started a fellowship, and traditionally this institution is deep set into Mormon Utah culture, and yet they're starting a new program slowly and steadily that is including an undocumented immigrant at the forefront of it as their artist in residency, making an exhibition in a museum about immigrant labor. You know, I think a lot of people look at me now and feel, if they're a young artist, that they could never get to that point. But I was also at that point. I felt that I would never have representation to be an artist in a state that doesn't even see me as a citizen or as a community member. And yet my name is there. My name cannot be taken from that. I will always be that first artist in residency. I will always be an MFA student. I will always be a part of these communities, regardless if they want it or not. And it's just by getting my name out there and impacting others and sharing the experience of hardship that I have, because it is valuable. If it wasn't for the stories or the programs that have impacted me, I wouldn't be where I am. And that's where I want to be, creating and impacting other people to empower them. I don't see myself as an artist that will change the world singularly. I want to change the world together. I want to empower others. And that's where I take a focus, is taking the opportunities that I have and sharing them with communities. At the residency I'm doing, every Tuesday I have people come in and share their oral histories, regardless of if they live in Utah or not. And their stories will be remembered in that institution for as long as, it's been around for 100 years, and I think it'll be here for another 100 years. And why not just take the step and be a part of something and make sure that something's remembered?
Oh, that's huge, especially doing the kind of art that you're doing in, again, as you said, a little bit of like conservative Mormon Utah is kind of what I think about.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's quite brave. That's the word that comes to mind, is like quite brave. And so have you received any like pushback or anything from this, of people trying to like maybe demotivate you from putting yourself out there, in that sense of being so unabashed and saying, hey, this is my status, love me or not, I know who I am. So kind of how do you navigate that, again, in the specific city that you're located in Utah?
I think I have that discussion a lot with my faculty and with my family. And at the end of the day, I know that the art that I make is permanent. If it is burned or is thrown away, it still existed and it still impacted people. And you can't take experiences away from people. And I think I've been in a lot of situations that could be dangerous for me. I've taught art therapy workshops to veterans in Park City. I've taught children art classes around the state. I'm at the art museum, like a federal institution, as an artist in residence. I feel like if I don't take that step to be the first, or to be the only undocumented immigrant represented within that community, then who will? Who's going to take that step? Who's going to take that scary first step? And I know that once I take it, I know that there's 100% more likelihood that someone like me could take it again. It's not about the fear that I have for myself. It's the fear that I have of losing my community if I don't do these things. Similarly, when I do murals, if I think I had a conversation with the teacher saying that I shouldn't discuss my undocumented status for the city mural proposal. And I looked at her and discussed that if these people don't want to represent me, if they don't want to represent these stories, then I wouldn't want my artwork in their city. I go where I'm welcomed. And if I don't feel like I belong, I make sure that others belong. And that's the most I can do. And that's what I hope for in every opportunity I take. Just to know that I am contributing to an environment that will help others feel like they belong.
100%. And so where do you kind of foresee your artwork being placed over maybe the next like 5, 10, 15-ish plus years? What do you hope to put out there for the people to see, especially as you continue to grow in your own right as an artist? You're gonna get your MFA, again, you're gonna get your MD. Like how is your art gonna kind of correlate into all of that? And which
Thank you so yeah. I think I definitely see myself doing more research and more community-based work. I last year I was invited to a consortium of artists abroad from Mexico, and I couldn't join because of my status. But I worked with them to do a virtual workshop, and hope within the next decade, that something's figured out with that, where I can interact with a community that I've been dislocated from. And I have such a strong connection to Mexico and to Latin America, and I'll have a lot of family there that I still love and want to connect with my art to tell their stories. I know that there are a lot of things happening in this world, and I know there's a lot of people that feel they're not being remembered. And I just want my art practice to expand in a way that remembers more people. I know that there's so many things that I wish I could talk about that are dangerous, that would put me at risk. And I hope that one day that'll just be a memory, that I will no longer be fearful of that people around me won't fear for me and my status. And I think that's an incredible hope I have for the future. That there's just not a fear of connection.
No, 100%. And I know that again, your art touches on like diasporic themes, disconnection, displacement, and things of the like. And so for folks who are interested in engaging with your art, kind of what do you want people to know as we get to the end?
That I'm doing a lot of projects that call for their stories, that they can reach out to me and participate and feel, no matter where they are, no matter where they live, no matter their history, that their stories deserve to be heard and deserve to be remembered. And that I feel that I am just an agent for change that is a part of a collective, that I feel that so many other artists like me just want to remember people and not to be scared to put their voices in when your city's art council is asking for opinions, when your local government is asking for opinions, or when you have a chance to impact anything. I feel that no matter who you are not too small to make a change or to make something heard. And I certainly know that someone who wasn't documented, I never thought I would go to college. I never thought I'd be on a city arts council. I never thought I would be part of a 10-year-long program to create a Mesoamerican art gallery for the biggest museum in Utah. I never thought of that until I took that first step with a community, with people that believed in me and believed that others should recognize people.
No, that's huge. And so what are some ways that we can support you and show up for you? I know we can see your art in issue 158 of Read Magazine, but where are some other spaces that we can catch your art or maybe some of your installations? Because you show up for so many other people. How can listeners show up for you?
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. I have an Instagram that has a lot of call for stories that anyone can submit virtually. They're recorded stories that then eventually get turned into artworks or installations. I'll have an exhibition at the Springville Museum of Art this December that'll go on for about 3 years. And that one again has interactions where they can go in and record their stories. I think the biggest way to support me is to recognize the immigrants in their own state, in their own cities, in their own towns, and make sure that they're okay, make sure that they feel heard and remembered. And of course, I can only do so much as a singular artist, but I'd only ask that people listen to each other and feel that respect for each other, that we're all just people and that we all sacrifice for our families and that we all just want what's best for our communities together, not divided by something.
And you're doing what you need to do to bring us all together through art. And I think that's one of the bravest mediums. And so I tip my hat and commend you. And again, congratulate you one more time on winning the art submission in issue 158. And I also want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. It truly was an honor. When I got the news, I knew my mom and dad both cried, and I cried with them, because really, this is what makes it possible, and this is what it means to recognize people who love their community and love to impact art with people.
100%. Well, what I will do is I will go ahead and put your Instagram handle and your website into the show notes. But if anything, thank you so much for your time today, Pablo.
Thank you so much, Opal. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day.
We'll listen to you guys on the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our interview of Pablo Cruz-Ayala. You can find more about Pablo Cruz-Ayala's work at www.pablocruzart.myshopify.com. That's myshopify.com. And on Instagram at PABLOC_ART_. That's at PabloC_art_. This has been In the Reads, the podcast of San Jose State University's Read Magazine, California's oldest literary journal. Find us online at readmag.org, reedmag.org. Thanks for listening.